North Ward, Frank Jensen Purdue, Gordon Cameron Anderson, Peter Scott Palmer. South Ward, George Billings Rich, Edward Joseph Bennett, Reginald Francis Mason. East Ward, Joyce Ann Cummings, William John Hesketh, Frederick Clive Haynes, and West Ward, Peter Robert Mullard, Victor Charles Bell, John Thomas Bishop. In respect of the Midwest Ward, Norman Rodney Trays, Harry James Edwards, Leslie John Sellers. Central Ward, Albert George Henderson, Peter Frederick Morris, and Leo Francis Gately. City Ward, Douglas Gordon McDougall, Selwyn Alfred Dalton, and Bernard Lionel Lonsdale Gosper.
Endeavour to pull the wool over the eyes of the electors. We had the incident out in the South Ward with regard to the substitution of a figure or the deletion of a figure. I didn't think that was the proper thing to do at all. I suppose everybody has the right to do what they like, and maybe it's all things are fair in love, war and council elections, but I've never seen anything like that happen before in a council election, and I certainly hope I never see it happen again. Just quoting from one of the pamphlets that was put out here, this council was accused of bad management, whatever bad management may mean, and council inefficiency. And I would like to use this opportunity to assure the public, I know I haven't to assure those who are here because they know as well as I know that there is neither bad management nor inefficiency in the Council of Newcastle. I'm sure it has a reputation which is Australia-wide for its good management and its efficiency. We are also accused in this same pamphlet of procrastination, indecisiveness and ineffectual representation of our City Council to the state government, which again is absolute nonsense. There's neither procrastination, indecisiveness or ineffectual representation. I'm sure all of the matters that we deal with are effectually represented to the government, but whether the government takes action, of course, is a matter for the government. We can only ask and press. We can't make the government do these things.
With Australia's wool trade fast fading, or apparently so, our guest this afternoon, Mr. Jeff Wootton, is a man from the Department of Trade and Industry whose job it is to encourage people to export other things. How successful is this export drive of yours?
We feel it's been particularly successful over the last 15, 20 years, particularly on manufactured products. you'd appreciate from your earlier comments that wool dropping as it has been consistently, and with our industry improving so much, that manufactured products are an important factor. Now, if we go back to 1949-50, for example, our manufactured exports were only 4.5% of our export total, at the low level they were then.
Mhm.
Now we're riding at 18% of our export volume in manufactured products. But bear in mind that this 18% is a vastly increased total export volume. So I think we could say that our exports of things other than wool have increased rather well.
But your department, among other things, is miscellaneous. Now, this must give you a tremendous scope. How do you encourage people to export?
Can I briefly say that I'm miscellaneous in building materials, basically because we run to a number of commodity groups in our office, engineering and food and textiles and apparel and so on. Mine happens to be building materials and miscellaneous. The miscellaneous, of course, is a catch-all that covers any other thing from toys and games to souvenirs, to fire bricks, which you've got one manufacturer up here, quite effectively exporting, I believe. So the miscellaneous thing means that we look for manufacturers who are not categorized in most of the other general terms. And we find markets for a surprising number of these.
What's the hardest part of your job? Persuading people that they've got an exportable commodity, or helping them export it once they have decided this?
Sometimes it's finding the manufacturer who has some excess capacity to export. If he has a good home market, of course export is not so important to him. Some of our discussions will turn to the point where it's valuable to have a second market to cover over fluctuations in the home market. This allows him to have a continuing supply to an overseas country, giving him quite adequate return on his capital, helping him to even out his overhead costs, and generally keep employment up to a satisfactory level.
Well, you're now talking to all sorts of people who aren't manufacturers themselves, or they probably work in a company which does manufacture.
Mm.
Have these people any opportunity to help you in an export drive?
Help me is a kindly phrase, if I might say this.
Well,
It's
help you do your job.
It's help us all from an Australian point of view. We like to know of products that are being made. It's rather difficult, if we look at it in any public administration terms, to know everything that's going on in the country. Individual companies may come up with a new product. They may be only testing it. It's just as easy to test it in another market, provided, in our terms, they can then supply it in the volume and with a consistency that any buyer wants to know about. And it's more important overseas than at home to have reliability.
Well, the last sort of question here is, having decided that you've got something you can export, it's not really as difficult as it's made out.
No, it's like most things, I believe, in terms of documentation and the characteristics that go with export or marketing in any terms. The first set of bills of lading and documents are the hardest, and I'm quite sure that the chambers of manufacturers, chambers of commerce and import-export agents would be only too happy to help anybody who wanted to know the intricacies of this problem.
Well, that's where you can get your information from. If in doubt, ask the Department of Trade and Industry, and no doubt Mr. Jeff Wootton may be the man who's sent up to help you. Thank you for being our guest this afternoon.
Thank you.
Bruce, are you disappointed with your performances overseas, or are you quite happy with them?
Well, I'm a little disappointed I didn't go a bit better in my favourite event, which is trick skiing. But overall, I suppose I did pretty good.
And this was your second World Championships, wasn't it, Leslie? How do you feel about it?
Now, this was my first World Championship, and I was a bit disappointed, but I couldn't expect any better, not really.
What was the toughest competition you had to face?
The Americans, they were the toughest, and, well, you can't beat them.
Do you think you learnt anything from the trip?
Oh, yes, I'd say I learnt a fair bit.
And what about you?
Oh, I'm satisfied how I tricked, but the other events I could have done a bit better, I think.
Do you find your skiing has interfered with your schoolwork?
Oh, a little bit in my studies, and I get behind and all that, but I think I can still pass with a bit of work.
I believe you went the best of all. What was your best performance?
I came third in the tricks, and that was the best of the men's, except the one woman went better than that, but that's all right.
And what is the next big event you're planning to go to?
Well, Bruce and Leslie are going to go to Tahiti for a World Cup series, and sponsored by the French government, but I can't go to that one because of school.
Our guest this evening is Mr. Dennis Stewart, who, along with a group of other young people, will stage a starve-a-thon this weekend, beginning Friday morning, correct?
That's right, Friday morning at 8 o'clock.
And it'll go till?
To 8 o'clock Sunday night. Total of 60 hours.
You think you can survive without food and without great discomfort for 60 hours?
Not without great discomfort, but we can do it. I know this for a fact because we've done it once before, last year in Brisbane, for the same cause.
Well, the cause is to aid this Freedom from Hunger campaign. Admittedly, you're being sponsored by the hour that you don't eat. What good does this actually do to the people who are starving in some other corner of the world?
Well, our main aim is to, first of all, to raise money for the Freedom from Hunger campaign, but mostly to increase public awareness of Freedom from Hunger and the fact that it needs people's support. We believe we can just give a little bit of ourselves and people will start to examine Freedom from Hunger and to see what it's all about, and this is what we're aiming at, getting people to look for themselves.
Do you think that anybody other than the people taking part in the starve-a-thon will really know what it's like to go without a bit of food?
No, I don't think that anybody in Australia, or very few people in Australia, will ever know what it's really like to go without food. We're only going for 60 hours. It's not a great amount of time. To us, it's only symbolic, to the 60 hours. 60 hours is hard, sure, but it's not impossible to do. We're only trying to get to people the message that we're concerned enough to do something about it. We're hoping that other people will see this concern and investigate why we're concerned, the cause behind it, Freedom from Hunger.
The actual money you'll raise then will be relatively insignificant, although you'd like it to be a lot.
Yes, we'd like a large amount, but the actual amount, I mean, the few $100s that we'll raise is nothing like the 8 million that's been 9 million that's been raised so far, or the 15,000 million that's eventually needed.
Well, even if you made $1 million, hypothetically, what good is money to people who are starving?
Well, you need money to get people to, let me say it this way. To raise food, you've got to have people who understand full technology of food production. So this is what we do. We send in scientists, people who have a great amount of training, and they go in and teach the people in the underdeveloped countries how to increase and how to grow new types of foods. This is how the money is used up.
And is it working?
Yes, it is working. I'll give you one example. Ceylon, several years ago, had to import the greater majority of its rice. They were shown in a very simple program how they could introduce 3 new products: fish, alternative products. There was fish and there was sorghum, which they grew around
Yeah.
around the paddies, and all this was three products, 3 times the quantity. They now export rice. They're now able to stand up by themselves as a nation in their own right. They're now an exporting nation.
Good luck with your starve-a-thon. Good luck with your campaign for the anti-hunger campaign, and have a good breakfast on Friday morning.
Oh, I sure will.
Thanks for talking to us, Mr. Dennis Stewart, who'll starve all weekend.
Mr Davies, do you think dentists are behind the government's move?
Oh, most definitely. Dental technicians have always been a thorn in the dentist's side, and at long last they're doing something through the government to put us out of business and increase a monopoly on the denture industry.
How many members are there in Newcastle that will be affected?
There is quite a percentage of members in Newcastle that will be affected, to the extent of possibly in the vicinity of about 30.
Do you save the public very much?
Oh yes, we save them half the cost of what it costs for dentures from a dentist. And this would amount to approximately $60, $70 to $80.
Your work isn't strictly legal, is it?
No, at the moment it is illegal. It has always been illegal, but for the last 25 to 30 years we have been allowed to operate because we've had no harassment from the government or from health inspectors. I hope we will be successful. If Mr Jago could only hear the public reaction in Newcastle as it is at the moment, I think he would reconsider and withdraw the bill.